start our single-family design board meeting for October 7th, 2024. We will start with roll call.
I'm so sorry, Chair Lewis. We're going to have to redo that again.
Okay,
Recording in progress.
got it. Thank you. I heard a ding and thought we were recording, but welcome. We are starting the single-family design board meeting for October 7th, 2024. We will start with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll proceed with roll call. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi?
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti?
Yes.
We have quorum.
Okay. We will start first with public comment. This is for any general item, not for one of the agendized items.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. If anyone wishes to make a general public comment, they may fill out a slip and bring it to me. I don't see anyone in the audience moving to do so, and I'll turn my attention to virtual attendance, and I do not see any hands raised for general public comment. We did receive a written letter from a Miss Rose Wills, and at that, I will turn it back to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. Next will be approval of the minutes from the full board meeting on September 23rd. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I wasn't there for this one. Those look like the standard motions. Go to the next one.
Looks good to me. Yeah.
Would either of you like to make a motion?
Yeah. It's done? Yeah, you can go.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for September 23rd, 2024.
I'll second.
I'll abstain. Okay, approval of the minutes from the Single Family Design Board consent meeting for September 16th.
Excuse me, before we go on, I
Yes.
need to take a vote.
Oh,
Official vote. Chair Lewis,
abstain.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on September 16th. And this was Board Member Sherry, and she did not give us any revisions, but we'll just take a quick glance through it as well. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Those are all the standard findings. That looks good. Mm-hmm. That looks good. Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes from the September 16th consent meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, we will do approval of the minutes from the consent meeting for September 23rd. This was also Board Member Sherry. You can keep going down to the comments. There we go. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. All right, the rest looks like the standard findings. Okay, I'll move to approve the consent minutes from September 23rd.
I'll second the motion.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, next we'll do ratification of the action taken at the consent calendar for September 30th and today, October 10th. If we can read through both days.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, October
yeah.
7th.
Yes, and I can do that for everybody.
Okay.
The September 30th ratification was posted on the agenda, so I won't go through each of those items, but if any of the board members have comment, let me know. For October 7th, item 1 for 3002 Seacliff was granted final approval. Item 2, 555 Ricardo Avenue was granted project design approval and final approval. 126 East Constance Avenue was granted project design approval and final approval. And the project associated with multiple addresses at 3405, 3407, and 3425 Sea Ledge Lane, as well as 3357 Cliff Drive, was continued to Planning Commission for their coastal development permit.
Okay, I will make a motion to ratify the actions taken at the consent calendar for September 30th and October 7th.
I'll second that.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy,
Yes.
Board Member Moselhe,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, we will move to announcements and any future agenda items and appeals, and I believe staff has some to start.
Yes, so the board's project design approval that was granted for 313 Vista de la Cumbre, which is the minutes we just reviewed, was appealed to the Planning Commission, and it's tentatively scheduled for either late November or early December. We're waiting for confirmation from both the appellants and the applicant team, and staff will be following up with the board members when dates are confirmed. For the last appeals that we've had here, we do appreciate board attendance. I don't believe it's required or mandatory, but we've always had board members there present.
I think we can
perhaps-
definitely make that happen.
Excellent,
I think
and-
especially in this case, it would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Right, and generally, if I may interject, Ellen Kokinda, Design Review Supervisor, it's usually part of the majority decision, so it was granted project design approval, so someone who was contributing to that motion.
They don't have a date yet, so if you could
We'll
just keep
reach
us
out.
posted,
Yeah.
and then we'll confirm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I also wanted to announce that for the last item on the agenda, 1269 Farello Road, item 3, it has been postponed, and staff is continuing it to October 21st due to lack of quorum. And it was rescheduled because it was brought to our attention that board member Moselhe, to staff's understanding, had a perceived conflict of interest. And I was wondering if, for the record, through the chair, to board member Moselhe, if you could state for the record that conflict of interest.
Yeah, I had to step down of the item 3, 1269 Farello Road for conflict of interest.
And just for clarification, that's just because that was part of, it's a perceived conflict of interest that you were a former employee of Anacap Architecture, which is the firm that's representing 1269 Farella Road. So because you will have to recuse yourself from that particular item, that means we only have 2 board members today and a quorum of the single-family design board. We need 3 members in order to run the meeting. So because it's the last item, we will not be able to hear that item today. So apologies to the applicant team that we're not able to hear that today, but we have rescheduled that for October 21st, which is the next SFDB full hearing. And that's when we do expect to have quorum. And again, Board Member Mosley will be recusing herself for that, just out of precaution. So I do want to, again, clarify for members of the public, we will not be hearing the item for 1269 Farella Road. We will not be opening up public comment for that. It is rescheduled for October 21st. So that we can't.
There's still time if they want to submit any written public comment for that item.
Absolutely, absolutely. Always can email, submit written correspondence, come to the meeting. Those are the many ways. Participate. We have Zoom public comment, but we cannot be opening up or taking any public comment about it today.
Okay. On that note, especially with quorum, I was wondering how the application process is going and recruitment process for this board.
Thank you for asking. The application deadline ended September 25th at 5 o'clock. I do know that we have an applicant who applied and that was recommended. I think another that reached out and I had a chance to meet with them. And in order to even be considered by City Council, they have to still interview. So that's part of the interview process. And I feel hopeful that we'll be able to, have a 5th member to make quorum issues not be such an item, because of course, eventually everybody will have a conflict of interest, whether where you live or, perhaps with your firm. So we really try to avoid that. And this was just an unexpected absence by a fellow board member. So again, apologies for the inconvenience, but yes, hopefully the interviews for city council appointments will be taking place. I can't remember the exact dates, but there are 3 options and 3 opportunities for people to attend and do the interview. So that's when those appointments are confirmed by city council, we'll share that news with you.
And then do you know the effective date of when the appointment would start?
January.
It is January.
It's January,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, so we are, one of the things, one of your full board, I'm pretty sure it was Single Family Design Board, we wanted to schedule, we don't have a meeting the week of Thanksgiving. We scheduled a special hearing to kind of work around that. So we'll be following up with some just reminders about that. But I know it does put a lot of pressure to have a smaller group. Sometimes you can go a little bit faster, but also it's nice to have the full board to not run into these issues.
Okay. So on that note, for announcements, I think for the board is making sure to get in any potential absences to staff so that we can figure out any special scheduling.
That's correct. And, we understand that things come up and that's sometimes things are out of our hands, and I know that you all try to accommodate but we can still run a meeting with 3.
Okay. Perfect. Then we will move to our first agenda
Madam
item.
Chair, if I can be heard on the Furlough matter, which you...
We cannot have we cannot have comment on the furlough.
My name's William Dillon.
Sir, we cannot.
I'm an attorney for Rose Wills.
Excuse me, sir, this is out of process, and I just want to support the chair here. I'm happy if
Can I state my objection
You
before
can
you...
talk
I'm
with
happy to
staff
talk to you outside.
It's
We
on
are
the
not
Brown-
allowed to have
It
this.
is on the agenda. The Brown Act requires you to take comment on items on the agenda.
No,
I'm
Staff will
going to
handle.
comment only on the schedule. That's all I'm going to... I think that's out of order.
Okay. Our first item here today is a new item here for concept review, 575 Braemar Ranch Lane. This is a proposal to permit 636 square feet of as-built additions and conversions and construct 464 square feet of new additions to an existing 4,750 square foot three-story residence and attach 662 square foot three-car garage. The project includes construction of a new entry portico, a new pool with a slide and spa, an expansion of the existing covered patio and existing deck. Project site is located on a 2.6 acre lot with 40% slope in the Hillside Design District and in the city's coastal zone, non-appealable jurisdiction. The proposed total of 6,494 square feet of development on a 2.5 acre lot is 111% of the maximum guideline Florida lot area ratio. No final appealable action will take place today. Okay, so welcome. Are there staff comments?
Yes, thank you,
okay.
Chair. So the project before us today, there are still some, the project was deemed incomplete by staff. There's still some minor changes and corrections that have to be made. This application has gone through 3 cycles, and so we wanted to still get design review feedback, even though it does need some design alterations, and it has to do with the project's roof ends and their overheight in the zone, and they require redesign to be no greater than 30 feet above grade. So the applicant will be redesigning the roof in a future submittal, but feedback on the other portions of the project were wanted to continue this project through its review process. And another note is that the FAR on the plans is a little different from the FAR shown on the agenda. You'll see it's 111% here. On the plans, I believe it is around in the 90, like 94%. Oh, okay, around 106. So staff has not yet received plans that demonstrate a specific FAR reduction that the applicant was looking for, but they're still welcome to pursue that prior to project design approval. And but the FAR doesn't have to do with any zoning compliance. So with that, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. You'll have 15 minutes to walk us through your project. It would be helpful if you can also go through your photos, which are on the second tab. Those were not included in the uploaded documents, so it'd be helpful for us as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow board members. My name is David Watkins. I'm the project designer for the project we're hearing today. It's a single-family residence located off Braemar Ranch Lane. This is down below at Braemar in the public portion where it's a cul-de-sac, and then this driveway right up here leads you up towards the project site, which is just beyond this vegetation over here to the left. And this is the adjacent neighbor to give you a sense of scale and topography. This is coming up the driveway a little bit more around the bend, and this is looking towards the project parcel again from this driveway, which is actually an easement via an adjacent parcel. This is all part of the project parcel here. This is the lower part of the site, and then this is up here. There's a lot of heavy vegetation, and then the house is kind of beyond it. And this is looking up the driveway. This is roadway right here that we're kind of on to give you a sense of where you're at. And then as you come up this driveway, it's pretty steep. And then this is the upper lawn looking down towards surrounding area and Henry's Beach and all that. This is the hilltop across the street, and that house we saw one of the first photos is over here behind this tree to give you a sense of, again, relationship. This is a lower access auxiliary driveway on the property that's looking up towards the lawn, which is up here where that previous photo was taken. The driveway is right here, the main driveway to the house, and then this is the front elevation of the house here, the south and the east elevations. More sense of scale. This is a driveway looking down toward that easement road on the driveway, and then here's a close-up picture of the architectural style. It's kind of a mix of kind of Swiss Chateau-ish, Tudor-ish, but not really any of those things really definitively. I'd say this is a pretty good photo defining the elements. One big large massing of a roof uncovering most of the square footage, and then there's a larger roof line up above. That's the second hip that is defining the upper story. This is the basement level. This is what's being referenced right now by planning is, I believe we can get a 50% reduction on this lower level because it's considered basement because of half of it being submerged under 4 feet, at least 4 feet of grade. There's 2 open elevations, but I've done the calc so far, and we meet that 50% threshold to qualify for that. It just needs to be vetted and submitted with planning. But that's where the discrepancy in the floor area comes in, is because of that lower level. This is the up on the east side. The topography is very different on the site. It's sloping all the way from the top, which is the north up here. So actually the top of the property, or the north end of the property, is higher, or probably pretty close to roofline elevation of the main portion of the house, and then it slopes down towards the back of the residence. On the east, it comes down here, and there's this waterfall element, and there's a lawn that I was sitting at that's higher than the relative topography over on the west elevation. So there's a lot of undulations going on. There's more visibility on several elevations that's different than the south and the east. I'm sorry, south and the west, and we'll see that in other photos. This is looking down on the lower portion of the site towards the south elevation here. You can kind of see, even just on the property, you lose visibility pretty quickly. This is looking across towards an adjacent parcel to the far west. There's a creek down here that runs between the properties. It's pretty heavily vegetated. It's pretty hard to see them unless you're standing between certain canopies and stuff, and vice versa. This is looking more southwest to kind of give you, again, sense of neighbors and visibility views. Here's the west elevation where some of the proposed work will be going in that I'll bring up in a little more detail. It's going to be focused on right here. And there will be a pool kind of where I'm standing at in this photo, and then we're looking north right now towards the back end of the property. This area right here is a retaining wall, and this is some site steps that are made out of railroad ties. That wall was built in the field in the last 20 years before the current owners bought it. So it's failing. You can't really see in this photo, but if you go on site, it's spalling pretty bad. It's cracking, so that just needed to get redone anyways, and that was helpful to our scope when we decided to come out here, and rather than just redo the wall as is, to gain back some square footage right here and do another bedroom on the lower level and clean all this up. This bedroom right here in the foreground is half of it was permitted in the original scope back in the 80s, and then the rest of it was kind of infilled and as-built again. There was a number of as-built stuff that's done that lower level, probably 80s and 90s, that we're also including in this current permit proposal to get permitted. Just another redundant photo showing the adjacent neighbors in the background there and there on the west. More views of the vegetation here in the north, and this will be kind of the north end of the pool area. This will get pulled back a little bit with some natural site boulders, site retaining walls right here to gain back some more yard. For as big as this property is, there's actually a really small amount of usable flat footprint anywhere, so we're trying to gain back some of that, and the only real spot to do that without a super crazy amount of work and excavation is on this west elevation where I'm standing in this photo. But even with that, with the proposal and the pool and stuff, we're still doing a lot of grading work and retaining walls. And so with the photos, hopefully that will help with the orientation of the site a little bit better. So a lot of those photos were taken right here. That last photo was looking north right here towards this portion of the site. This area right here is where that new bedroom on the lower level is going to get added onto. This will all be cleaned up because it's deteriorating, and it'll be cleaned up a little bit better to improve access up to the main level deck and get some of this area permitted legally. This is the footprint too of the lower level, and this little portion right here of the rec room, which is again on basement level, was also built illegally. This little pop out right there, so I'm going to pull that out, clean up that front elevation, and buy more covered patio space, which is going to happen right here too. And then here's kind of a close-up. Well, this is civil. We can kind of show you in terms of site what we want to do. Here's the pool right here that we're proposing on the west side. We do have to pull back some of this grading and do some retaining walls. What's not shown here is probably a second series of retaining walls, so we can reduce that apparent height. So it's 6 feet retaining walls versus a really tall 15-foot one like this would have to be right now. An uncovered deck here on the south to maximize our views again and vegetation and not require a lot of clear cutting of the trees around there. And then pulling this uncovered patio out a little bit more. This area here was roughly where that demo or as-built portion of the rec room is going to get demoed out. And then we'll pull the existing main level deck forward a little bit to provide more shading and also increase the usage and functionality of that main level deck above. This will be a little fire pit. In this corner is a column here, and then this is kind of another strengthening and massing element that I put right there to help with that overall massing of the front elevation that was kind of missing. And then I'll jump to the plan here. Here is quickly the as-built stuff. Here's the as-built here. back in this area is going to get demoed out, and all this area in purple here is going to get demoed out as well. A little portion of the garage was also built a few feet forward in the original, or from the original permit set into the last 20 years, so we're including that. That's kind of here, and then we're also pushing forward an additional few feet to make that garage more vehicle-friendly because there's these columns that were added in there too during construction that make parking very infeasible and difficult. In areas in gray area, we're adding on the lower level, so there's that bedroom here. We're cleaning up this little lower level hallway to improve access and down there and get a second door out to this outdoor space, and then getting all this cleaned up and permitted, and then adding onto the garage right here a little bit. Here's the existing configuration of what was built versus what was permitted. This kind of vertical hatching that's right here, that was actually the line of what the original house's south elevation should look like. There was a lot more articulation than there is now. It's very flat right now, unfortunately. There's supposed to be a pop out of that main level with glass. It was actually a nicer defining element that was centered underneath that hip roof, and that was giving more character, and these recesses on each side kind of help provide relief to that elevation. Don't know why that didn't happen, but it didn't. So this is actually just one big flat wall that they did, probably money. And they just infilled it here and here off the kitchen. Even with that being said, though, this kitchen was pretty small. There's a lot of space, but not a lot of good usable space, especially here on the west. The owners have a family and kids, pretty good-sized family, and so it's funny because there's so much square footage in this house, but the kitchen's not very usable at all, and it's really hard to actually use that the way it should be. So the main driver originally was to just pull this kitchen out, gain back some of the square footage off this deck here, convert that to habitable square footage with a kitchen addition, get this permitted, and then redo the detailing along the perimeter of the deck because it's rotted pretty bad because of the area. And some of that detailing that was supposed to be done on the original house when it was permitted, a lot of nice banding and trim work actually just never got done. So the result is something very different. It's very spindly. There's a lot of wrought iron work. The wood trim isn't there. And then what was going to be some heavier columns down underneath supporting this big heavy mass at the main level just turned into these really small 6x6s. So massing proportion-wise, it looks very spindly down below with this big heavy mass being supported above it. So we're trying to help that out a little bit. Here's a proposed plan. What we're doing here, we're reconfiguring this kitchen. I try to gain back some space over here off the entryway to make the pantry back here. Pulled this entryway out to make it a more definitive entryway because unfortunately this big long roof line comes down and you're walking up underneath the eave of the house, and that just doesn't feel very inviting. So I wanted to open that up and kind of make a more definitive entry there on the east that we can see on an elevation. I created a tower element here up above that was really important to the wife. So when someone's here at the sink, he or she, they could actually get a nice view out the window towards the east. It's a really nice, part of the city that you don't get in very many places. And that just helped with the massing and the providing some relief on that side of the elevation, on the east elevation as well, with some kind of element without trying to create more square footage. And then with us pulling forward from what was original here at the previous deck line, we came forward about 30 inches, cleaned up the steps that were right here in the middle of the walkway, or the middle of the deck, which was kind of creating two less than ideal surfaces that weren't quite usable. So just making this all flat in one level and then pulling the steps over here right off the kitchen first and then allowing this to all be level just gives more flexibility and usage for this whole corner, which is going to be the active area. And then that massing that I was introducing down below comes up here, creates a fireplace element, so there's some built-in for barbecuing and stuff like that. That's the third level. The only thing we're really doing up here is getting this permitting of what that element was intended to be, and then they actually infilled and just made that flat elevation again run up to the third floor. So this is just being included in the massing. And then trying to provide more relief on that front elevation, I furred out this wall here, and we'll see that in the elevations just to get some shadow lines and create a little bit more visual elements. RCPs, not really. Here's the proposed roof plan. This was that main gable you can kind of see off the south elevation a lot, and here's that higher gable that is kind of trickier to see depending on where you're on the site beyond it. We're going to keep all that as it is and just introduce that tower element off this corner right here to give some relief off this side of the elevation, and then here's that new addition down below, that lower massing. Real quick to talk about the comments with the heights and stuff. Due to the site and the topography, it is very tricky we've been working back and forth with planning to try to nail down what the actual 30-foot height limit would look like in relation to the roof lines. In the last few weeks, I've been able to nail that down a little bit better. They just haven't seen it yet. The back line, the main third level roofing actually will comply with that 30-foot height limit, and it should be noted that it's the existing roof lines that are over the 30-foot height limit, not anything that we're proposing. everything we're proposing still complies with under that 30-foot threshold. What we are proposing to do, though, with the existing roofs is, these were you can see from the photos, these were like hip gables. So this was a gable, this was a gable. There's a big hip here and on the end and down over here with a really big 30-inch overhang off that south elevation. I wanted to clip that and pull that all back tighter to the house so it didn't have this big hulking overhang coming off the front anymore, because you would have to have that elevation so tall, is you would have to have a tremendously long overhang to really actually provide shading off that glazing. So it's not really doing the duty it needs to do. So pulling that tighter back to the existing south elevation wall line was the intention, but because we have to clip that end of that hip to make that work, that's where the non-compliance comes in, because we're altering something that's existing and permitted but over the 30-foot height line. The reason to do that too is that, here you can kind of see that it just kind of changes the look of the massing a little bit. So ideally trying to get that cleaned up and removing those hips would kind of help open this up a little bit more. And so the intention was to make it more open. Here's the north elevation here. Just adding some more interest with some precast elements, taking all that wood off because it's completely rotted everywhere around the house. And rather than redo it and have the same problem happen again, the owners just want to strip it, keep the plaster, and then they like the idea of the precast elements to get more in line with like a French chateau look, which is really interesting to them. And that's been the driver for Amy and Eric, because they love that look. They saw that house, and when they bought it, they don't love the way it looks right now, but they were able to see what it could be, and so that's their strong intentions. They want to make it more look like a chateau. So trying to introduce some precast elements here with the railing is taking off, not just replacing that wrought iron like for like, but actually adding some column elements, some limestone or sandstone up here to break up that massing, and then introducing these more decorative guardrails, because also those existing rails were only like 33 inches tall. And then on this elevation, on this lower level here, doing stone cladding just along that base element, again, to add more substantialness to that base, and then everything else can remain as the plaster and then just the trim work around the doors and windows. Here's that south elevation now cleaned up a little bit. I ideally would like to take that hip off right here and then just make that a clean rake wall face, and then that allows us to start doing these arched window elements that the owners really wanted. Especially right here, that was the driver, is the hip wasn't working because it made this window more rectilinear, and it just made everything still flat and elongated, where we're trying to make some visual verticality to it. This window here, they really wanted as much glazing as possible, so this was actually a fight with them to reduce it down to this so it would still look balanced with the design versus just a full height storefront wall. That in their mind is what they wanted to see when they look out the ocean. But this is more beneficial, I think, with the design of opening this up, having the curved elements, matching that over here with all the glazing that was happening on this side, and then starting getting a conversation going where these larger window elements have these curves to them.
And pardon the interruption here, but we are at time
Thank
for
you.
the presentation. Chair Lewis, if you want to grant extra time, you're more than welcome to, but.
Yeah, if we can have one minute of a wrap-up, and then we'll just coordinate in questions.
Sure. This is the east elevation. Here's that tower element I was referring to. And this scheme, the rest of this is Tesla PV panels right now for solar, so they're completely off the grid self-sufficient. But this would be introduced as like a copper element at least, because you can't do the curve yet on the solar panels, and that just adds some visual interest then. And then here's that entryway right there. It's flat because it'd be too hard to make a roof framing over this that would conflict with here. So that's kind of introducing that now, cleaning this up, and then doing a corbel to catch this projection that's happening over here off this element. Otherwise, it'd be floating like it is right now on site, to kind of, again, ground that down a little bit better. And these are just some rough 3Ds to kind of give you a sense of what's happening here. And I'll stop with that.
Okay, thank you. We will move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will turn our attention to virtual attendance, and I see no hands raised for comments virtually, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this particular project. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. We will start with questions from the board. Who would like to start? Okay.
Hello, welcome. You mentioned that on the west side there's a retaining wall that it is lowered now from 15 feet to 6 feet. Can you show us on site plan or wherever you think it shows the best even if on the 3D views?
Sure. The 3D views don't have those
Okay.
updated yet because we're focusing more on the house, but I can show you here on that one. So last design, when we were looking at this was just one wall line to capture all this. But when we're working out the sections here, that's going to be way too steep. And from distance to daylight, it's going to be tremendous. So rather than having us drill down another 30 feet and going across for distance to daylight, we'll just add another series of wall. I'll probably just kick it out another 30 inches, not very much further, and then drop it down to get a tiered system to help make that work out a little bit better. So we can keep the apparent face at 6 feet each one.
And is there any landscape or existing trees removed because of that?
No, not down here. There's these clusters of little, they look like aspens, but I don't think they quite are. We were actually looking at the other day, and it's one trunk that I think just got butchered and sprouting up. So we're trying to keep these right now. They're not natives or anything, so it might get too close with this part of the retaining wall. That might eventually go. Right now, it doesn't look like we have to. This is all bougainvillea and really steep just bushes. The closest trees are this guy probably right here, which is a uke, which is terrible and fire danger. But it's around, and these guys are fine right now too. They're just little ukes and pines.
Okay.
These guys here too are going to be okay.
I have one more question, but probably we can continue that in the comments. What was the, like you mentioned, because of the view from the sink and kitchen, the owner wanted windows in front of the kitchen, but was that the main reason for location of the tower in the house?
It was a driver where there was a existing pop out already right there off the east elevation in the current scheme. That was right around here. That wasn't working out very well, and it was kind of this shed thingy. It just didn't really lend itself very well to that massing, especially when we extended it off the south. So rather than keep that element, I shifted this down and then started working this tower element just to provide some kind of massing relief right here. And then just using that sink and the location of the floor plan, I worked off that to create that bay window pop out that was still desired, and then I just melded that into the tower element.
Can you show us that existing pop-out location on elevation maybe? Or
Yeah,
okay.
here it is in plan view.
Okay.
Right there. And then we're coming down right around here now. And then let me go to an elevation. Sorry, I have to go fast with this.
I think like it's enough on the
There you go.
plans.
There.
Okay.
So see right now, this
So-
thing just kind of slid down over the top of it. And
I see.
if I just elongated that forward, this would get really long and just boring and heavy, honestly.
We stay on that same, so the front door now is no longer in that location. It's been shifted or it's there?
Still same location in terms of plan view, but pulled forward. So we cleaned up because this wall here is a 45 degree and this wall is a 45 degree, so they pulled back
Got it.
to that element. I flattened that out right there, so that corner got away, and it's just pulled forward to clean up those 45s. And then that door, though, will still sit in that same location. It's just pulled forward in the new wall line.
I'm looking at the perspective, at the entry area exterior perspective. It's on the top left, and it looks like, and I'm just trying to figure out if it's the distortion of the view, but it looks like there's a significant, like, blank wall to the left of the door. So your top left picture.
This
There you
guy?
go. And so I was trying to figure out the alignment of where that front door is located.
Right there.
No, I see it in the
Right,
picture,
this
but on
wall
your
here.
elevation, makes it look like there's,
It's because there's a pantry and stuff, too.
so, but when we compare
This is
the
the wall line.
existing to the proposed,
There's that column that you see in that render,
Mm-hmm.
right there, or that pilaster. And then that's that flat wall line you're looking at right here. From there to there.
right, so when we're looking at your existing and proposed, your existing front door, it doesn't stay in alignment, it's further over. And then the window for the kitchen also shifts over, so now you have more of this solid.
It shouldn't be. That hallway's already set, so we're not.
I'm flipping back and forth on my plans, but they're not quite aligned, so it's hard to,
So that 45 is here in that existing elevation, and the wall line was right here, and the door was here. There was a single door and two side lights, so maybe visually it's that perception.
interesting. So it's just the tower that's shifting over then? Okay. All right, can you show us the photos you have again of your front the existing front door area as it is.
Let me see if I have a good one.
Oh, that one maybe. Okay, so then when we're looking at the site plan and things that are going to change for the stairs, you're keeping most of this in the front or no?
All these will stay right here, this first run. What
Okay.
you can't see in this view, and I can certainly provide more photos on, there's a mid-landing,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's, I think, maybe 3 or 4 more stairs. And then you have the last set of 3 or 4 stairs that go up to the top landing. We're going to reconfigure that a little bit, so the stairs will just be centralized, right, when you come off the porch and come down one time, and that'll bring you to the lawn. So these will all still stay as they are. Do you want me to go to site plan?
No, if you just pause right there, I'm still looking. Okay, so you're not intending to change any of the walls we see there on the bottom adjacent to the stairs?
Not here. This will come forward a little bit. This edge of this retaining wall, like this line right here, that will come forward a little bit because we're extending a little bit
Right,
forward.
right,
Yeah, and then that's used to catch. This will project forward about 30 inches, so we'll catch with a corner right,
Right.
here. But this will all stay. This will get cleaned up a little bit,
Okay.
but this is all going to remain as it is right now. We don't need to change this.
Okay.
So
I think it's just modeled incorrectly in the 3D model is what we're looking at. Yeah. Yeah, when you look at the 3D model, if you go back to your other image,
Probably right here.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
will you flip to it actually for reference? I think it'd be helpful.
We did. Let me see. Or maybe that photo doesn't show that planter. There is a planter right there. There's that one, but let's go to this.
And so it's also that right now in the model, it's looking like one big curve, but what we see in the photos is that that site wall has kind of, it steps in and then hugs the, okay. And then the height is a little bit different than what's modeled.
It's
So as long as we know
little.
you're not changing it,
No, this
it's
curve
just
is
what's modeled and correct, okay.
Yeah, this curve is probably somewhere on that front there, like you said, but we're not trying to change any of that.
Okay.
This is actually accurate, the stepping that's happening, but the grade that's not shown, this dirt comes up pretty fast, hits there, there's another one, and then
Right.
there.
Okay.
And then this is all coming up. So I'm sorry, this view, actually, if I could add, this will all stay
Right.
here. That, though, this is where we're gonna fix all that right there, here and here.
Okay. Can I ask, do you already have kind of French style details and inspiration and things like that?
Yeah, there's in my own personal things, yeah, and
Okay.
some of the phones that we've been sharing with the clients, yeah, but they still keep going back to this kind of French chateau, banding, mullions, lots of breakup of the glass.
Okay. And then is it just a model thing that we're looking at, that your cap of your site walls are shrunken in? You can see it there a little bit on the left, but you can see it in some of the other
This guy?
3D. No, look here on the left above July 2020, and then go up
Oh,
to the
yeah,
top of the
that's
wall.
total.
Okay.
That should be wider.
And then also to the right of your thicker area, it looks like a taller railing, but it looks like that's just on the model if you look on your other
This,
exterior.
yeah, for this situation, it's taller because this finished floor right here is higher
Okay.
until we step down. So I matched the 42 off that higher landing and just ran it across versus introducing that step down again.
Okay.
Because there would be a 42 and then you'd step down and you'd get a difference of maybe 18 inches because there's 3 steps. So I just ran it across and then stopped it at this element versus having it run and then drop down and then run across again to match there. It just looked better, I think,
Okay.
using this kind of element to break that up.
Okay. Board Member Graffiti, any questions?
No,
Okay.
covered everything.
Then we'll start with some general comments. As far as the size, personally, given the large site and the distance from the neighbors, I personally am not concerned. The thing that I think is worth really studying is the visual weight of this kitchen component that sticks out. I know you have one corbel, but you need 2 or you need something. It just, the visual weight of this corner feels like it's falling over. I think it's going to be important for us to see your reference precedent images, especially before you have your details and or your details for some of these areas. But one of the things I notice is like this rounded turret is sitting lost. There's nothing supporting it. And I do think it's worth looking at the proportions of the French chateau. I know that this seems to be something with the figuring out the best massive amount of windows, but I do think that in order to balance this well, especially given the style, it's going to fit, if you have the right balance of enough wall space to the windows, especially in the tight areas as you start to get the curves and what's left over, or like at the kitchen, like the roof starts to come in really close to the curved window adjacent. The other thing I think design element wise, and it may be something that we only notice in rendering and maybe less so from the driveway and street view, is the entry and the complex, of that versus this floating second story element. And I think it's worth studying a little bit. I'm curious some of the other board's thoughts once we get into that. And then for the step of the railing, I think that it wants the end piece to also be just as tall, the solid piece, or something that's solid that it ends it. And so you could bring the solid in a little bit more on both ends. And then I think, as a board, we're going to need to see that site section. I appreciate stepping down the site walls in the back to be the 6 feet or less. And it'll be important for us to understand the landscaping there, since this is something that you'll see up on the hillside. We'd like to see any proposed landscaping and proposed materials. I think in general, our guidelines like sticking to a proposed style, and so you're doing that, even though it's a different style than what the original house was, and I think that that's defendable. We would just like to see those details be executed. So, Board Member Sherry, not Sherry. Oh my gosh, Mosley. Oh.
So I agree with most of the comments Chair Louise made. I have like a couple of comments before I make my comments. So the chimney component, it's like 45-degree rotated, kind of like comparing to the mass of the house. Was that like an existing situation? Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that. It's a big monster to tackle.
Okay. So in general, the whole architectural style of the house seems different now. Like, as you mentioned early, it felt like a more Swiss chateau, like in like someone like wanted to have that, like from like a more cold and snowy area into like Santa Barbara area, and now it's going towards like a more French chateau, but like feels like more matte. Like I know that there are a lot of components now breaking the big mass, but seems like there are a lot going on, especially on the east elevation where you have the tower, where you have the entry, and where you have that like rectangle. I don't know what's the interior use of that. If you go to, we are on the east elevation. So the component on the right top and the entry and the tower and the way that they're working together, like there's no rhythm on this elevation, that it's like, I think like it's making it hard to read as a style, especially on this elevation. On the south elevation, it's working a little bit. I agree with like the clients even taste that, like they wanted like larger windows and they wanted more views. So it's like working better now with the solid walls, and taking off those hip roofs, like helping a lot to like maybe like simplify the mass. Like I think like one of the major issues is the east elevation. I understand the clients wanting to have glazing and opening in front of the sink in the kitchen, and it was already there. But the question I have is like, does that worth the most important component from the exterior side, like the mass, having the tower on top of the sink and like having a copper roof, which will like make it more dominant, like the most important component of the house is like there. I'm wondering if that was happening like at the entry foyer, like that will make more sense from like connection of interior exterior. But I know that it might be not possible. If we go to the like the 3D of like, I think it's like A601 or 2, the 3D. Yes, 601, top left. Here's exactly, I think like Chair Lewis was mentioning, like now, this is where the rhythm of the entry and that massing on the right top, it's just like we're trying to like force something. So
Which element, sorry?
the element of there's like a shading structure above the entry, and then there's that like, and the shading structure with the columns is like a different massing. It's like a flat shading structure, and those are like hipped roofs. So like I don't think these massing are working really well together, and it feels like the entry is like forced here, and then the tower, which is the most important component, being like above the kitchen. I know that it was like an interior decision, but I would love to see like inspiration as well, because the architecture style is like changing so much, and now the most important elements are the decorative railing and all those moldings around the windows. So yeah, I think that would be really helpful for the board to see why this transition is helping the project. And I agree with Chair Lewis that like because of the distance of the house to the neighbors and all the existing landscape, like the Balkan scale and size, like the FAR is not the issue, is like the style of this project transitioning this much, and if this is the best fit for the neighborhood. Yeah, I think that's all.
Okay. I don't have a lot to add. I agree with the comments of the other board members. I also agree, I don't have any issues with the FAR. It's a guideline FAR, and it's a huge lot. I'll also say I did do a site visit yesterday, and I went on a couple different public roads, and it was minimally visible at all. And I know that's something we talk about sometimes as a board. You know, if something is really minimally visible, you know, how much are we going to drive? But I think a lot of the comments were, or all of the comments I heard, I would agree with just for the sake of the project. And it might be a little bit more visible with the pop out of the kitchen on the front as well. So I would focus a little more energy on that element. And yeah, I think there'll be a lot of improvement, but just kind of pulling it all together and making it cohesive and work.
Madam Chair, can I ask for feedback from you guys too on the roof styles, since that will come into play? I think with the language in the ordinance, it's pretty clear that if you have an existing structure that's permitted, if it's over 30 feet, you can't alter it, period. And so that would require us to keep the hips. And if that's the case, then that totally changes our approach, because it's going to support your comments more, I think, about the styles and stuff.
Yeah, I think we can help. I personally would be happy supporting changes to a roof to help complement the style, especially noting that you're not raising the roof higher than any of the max heights are currently. The only other thing that I think might be good to study, I was just in the French part of Canada, and so I saw a lot of this kind of French style roofs, and I think that that would be worth really studying and looking at, and would be helpful to the argument of changing the roof, is leaning into this sort of French style more.
Agreed.
Okay. Oh, yes.
If you guys, do you have objections if we have to keep the hip for, reasons, then does that maybe change some of your comments in any way?
I think ultimately, in the way that we'll phrase our comment in our motion, the goal is to have a cohesive language, period. So however best that's accomplished, I think we want to leave you with the creative freedom, but finding the right way to articulate other elements if you're keeping existing conditions. Any disagreements? Okay.
No, I agree. I think it's cohesive style for sure. So you have to work
Yeah,
with
that's
it and not
what we
against
are-
it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where, what, like, exactly, the cohesiveness is like what we are like struggling, unless like there's like a personal decisions to just like change the style of the architecture, and as was mentioned, board members, like, it's not that visible from the street, so it's more a personal decisions, but it's like we want cohesiveness to remain in case there's a tree in the public street somehow, like, over the years from now, that is
Right, there could be
removed,
changes,
and
yeah.
then like the house will be more visible from
Right.
the street or the neighbors, so.
But I think, you can tell that quite a lot of attention was given on the southwest side, and I think that that works well. It's trying to bring that cohesiveness to the front. Okay, so I'll move.
I have
Oh,
one
yes?
last comment, like I'm seeing the material of the garage that is proposed is like wood plank. Do we have anywhere like color palette or?
No materials
No
yet,
materials
so
yet,
I
okay.
think that all of that will be part of
Next
this
time.
motion. Yeah.
The doors are final right now. so-
Okay.
Okay.
There's 3 of them, so
Yeah.
it's pretty hard. It's a challenge, that elevation right there with the 2-car garage doors.
Yeah.
That type of
Sure.
colors or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I move to continue this project indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The board is generally in support of the size and scale of the project and would recommend studying the bulk of the tower given its cohesiveness to the front elevation. In addition, the board recommends studying the front entry sequence and how it connects with existing architecture of the front second story. The board recommends incorporating visual support of the kitchen second story extension. The board would like to see a site section through the site walls up towards the pool or through the pool. The board would like to see precedent imagery for the style of the home and a commitment to that style through all the architectural detailing. The board looks forward to seeing a landscape concept plan and material finish board for the residents. The board is in support of the heights of the roofs as they match the highest points of the existing residence. And recommend that whatever roof form proposed coordinates with the architectural style. The board recommends studying the balance of solid wall and glazing, especially around the arched windows.
Did you make a note about the railing height differences? I don't remember if you did.
I
or
don't know
not.
that I did.
Okay.
The board recommends studying the detailing of stepping down the railings to better frame the endings.
Does the board agrees the chimney to stay as is? I know
If it's
that
existing.
it's like
I
hard to
do, yeah.
capture it in
Yeah.
the massing.
The board is open to adding architectural details to the chimney to help,
If possible.
if possible, whether that's capping or things like that to help with the style.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslehi,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to our second and final item for today, which is a continued item here for project design approval. 1337 Cliff Drive. Proposal to construct additions to an existing 1,706 square foot single-story, single-unit residence consisting of a 136 square foot first floor addition and a 683 square foot new second story. Project includes 288 square feet of second floor decks, converting an as-built 322 square foot detached storage space to a deck, and reducing existing walls, gates, and hedges in the front yard to be 3 feet and 6 inches. A 485 square foot attached two-car garage and raised deck in the backyard will remain. The parcel is located in the coastal zone non-appealable jurisdiction. The proposed total of 3,010 square feet of development on a 7,939 square foot lot is 95% of the maximum required Florida lot area ratio. The project was last reviewed on August 26th, and again, they're here for project design approval, so welcome.
Chair Lewis, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Hi, Chair Lewis, board members. It's Holly Garson, Assistant Planner with Planning and Zoning. So I just don't want there to be any confusion with this project. It is before you today for project design approval. However, it is a design review only project. So typically my presence here means that there's a discretionary decision that we need to forward on for the staff hearing officers, but that's not the case for this project. So they are here for project design approval. And an action does need to be taken on that project design approval by December 3rd to be compliant with the Permit Streamline Act. And I'd like to point out that in the project description, the FAR has been reduced, and the applicant can speak to this in their presentation. But I'm just here for questions if needed, so thank you.
Okay, perfect. And since you have been here before, it'd be helpful if you touch on the previous minutes, which I believe are the third tab, and how you made adjustments or changes if applicable. Okay.
Okay, I'll start with that. Good afternoon. My name's Joe Androlitis with Androlitis Mixon Architects, and I have the owners, Brian and Janet, here. So I will just start right with the minutes, and then I'll move on to some other stuff. Okay, item number one, the board would like to see a cohesive architectural style and revision to the front elevation to help reduce the visible bulk, provide cohesion between the second story and first story. So one, we eliminated the roof deck. We added some siding to parts of the elevation, and we reduced the size and scale. The height of the building reduced by 19 inches. The second floor area reduced from 797 square feet to 683 square feet, a reduction of 114 square feet. Number two refers to the roof deck. We've eliminated that, so that takes care of that one. Number three, I will show you the street elevation as we move through the drawings. Number four, we did revise the window size and placement along the north elevation. Number five, the deck has been reduced and the setback increased approximately 4.5 feet. Regarding the storage area underneath the deck, we added some screening. And I think that's it. So I'll move on to the drawings. We can start here. See if I could zoom in here. So I introduced some siding to the elevations. You can kind of see it faded up above. So in keeping with that style, but not being completely opaque, because I can't be opaque, because that would be considered an enclosure. So it's basically siding with some gaps. So I think it's 3.5 inches wide, and the spacing is like 6 inches. So hopefully, I think that'll be enough to kind of conceal the cross bracing and give the deck a landing as it comes down. So I haven't finalized the paint color there. We're going to talk about it, but it'd probably be similar to the decking that you see there. So first floor hasn't changed. Second floor configuration changed a little bit. The bathroom and closet kind of got rearranged. I know it wasn't reflected in the minutes, but there was a lot of mass right on the setback on this side. So I pulled back the bathroom area about, I think it's like 3 feet. And then you could see the deck got pulled back. And then we also extended the roof line all the way across on this elevation, which we'll see. I did leave a little portion of the mass on the setback just to give it some play along that elevation, which I think works. Deck got pulled back on all sides, so that's the reduction. We did include another little outdoor deck here in the back where the roof deck was above. This is tucked in behind the roof, and I think I show a rail back here, but after further thought, I don't think we even need a rail because the ridge line of the roof is higher than 42 inches, so it'll basically not be visible from any view. Here's the revised roof plan. Simplified roof with just hips. And the 2 deck areas, one in the front, one in the back. Here's a standard eave detail, kind of meant to match the existing. It's just right now it's just a plastered eave with a wood fascia board. Here are the revised elevations. I'll zoom in on the north. I'll start with the north elevation because I know that was a concern. You can see the roof was simplified here, so it's just a standard hip that goes all the way across. Siding's introduced on a portion of the second floor, and then I also introduced some siding in this little recess of the entry to kind of give it some balance. The windows are all similar along this bathroom area, and then this is a nice big picture window facing north as you come up the stairs that opens up to the deck. So hoping to get a lot of light in the stairwell and also possibly in the living space below. That was a thought with that door or that window. South elevation, you can see this roof line now is extended all the way across. This was all stacked above the floor below. Here you see the siding. We're kind of juxtaposing the siding in different aspects of the building to kind of give it some balance. I was trying to minimize the amount of siding on the existing building just to save some money. So that was kind of the thought here. A lot of this is getting added on, so it wasn't that big of a deal to add siding here. So that's kind of the reasoning of how it's balanced. Roof eave remains the same, and the roof overhang remains the same, both on the first and the second floor. I did reduce these bifolds slightly. This one was wider, and I decided to make it a little narrower to match the window above, so it kind of stacked. And this one pinched a little bit because the roof deck now isn't quite centered with the bedroom space. So the windows inside those 3 bifolds are offset in the bedroom, but they're kind of balanced by the door leading to the deck and then the window at the corner. So that was the thought there. Here's the west elevation. So here's the mass that is flush with the first floor below. And then this is the roof line that we've extended all the way across. So you can kind of see the deck here with the rail. This is the bathroom area that got pushed back. And then obviously the deck got recessed, so we're able to extend the roof up and around that whole deck area. East elevation, siding continues, wraps around the corner right to where this step is in the elevation, and then the siding wraps around here. These are 2 bedroom windows, and then these are the 2 bathroom windows. I think that rhythm works well. This is a railing we talked about, maybe it isn't 42. So I'll have to restudy that because that looks higher than, the roof looks higher than 42 inches. So I have to relook at the code there, see if I can get away without a railing. You said the existing elevations, you've seen those before, hasn't changed. These are perspectives, and I apologize for some of the renderings. My computer was kind of getting weird, so I don't know why it wasn't rendering some of the colors properly. So you can kind of see the bird's eye view of the massing with these decks tucked in behind the roofs. Here's the street elevation facing north. Here's a perspective facing south that you've seen before with the new configuration. So the siding that we're proposing is an artisan hardy siding. So it's a little thicker, and you can miter it. So I'd like to not do trim at the corner, so it'd make it a little cleaner. So those corners would get mitered on the siding. These are all the standard details. We did change up the colors since I submitted, so the colors, it never renders properly in the computer, but these are the color chips. So that's the white of the siding, this is the plaster color, and this would be the front door. And then I forgot to include, you guys asked for a street elevation. So this is the street elevation I've prepared. It shows two houses down on the west side and 3 houses down on the east side. This is our house here, and then 2 doors down is this house, which is a Spanish house, and I looked up the data on that one. That is 1327 Cliff Drive. In 2005, they did a first floor addition of 100 square feet, similar to us, and their second floor addition is 669 square feet, similar to us, where ours is 683. And the house next to that, they did a first floor addition of 408 square feet and a second floor addition for 580 square feet. So I think when you look at the whole street elevation, there is kind of a rhythm of that occurring in the past, and we're kind of just continuing it. Let's see. Building height reduced, second floor reduce. Roof deck, that roof deck before was reduced by half. That doesn't count the roof deck that we added on the north side, but the one that you were concerned on the south side got reduced by 50%. And then Holly mentioned that the FER was reduced from 99% to 95%. So I think that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience to do so, so we'll move on to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, we will start with questions. Any questions from the board?
I have like 2 questions. One is like, has the maximum height changed from the previous time we saw?
So we've got, the maximum height of the building was reduced 19 inches.
Okay. And on the, that perspective facing the south, or one of those photos that you have the perspective on it, like at the end of the presentation?
Let's see.
The deck? Yeah,
This
here.
one?
Yeah,
Yes,
this one.
yes.
What's that thickness of the deck?
That deck, there's a jacuzzi that's built into that, and there's a stair that leads down. It just wasn't modeled.
So
you
like
can see-
there will be stairs going up.
Yeah, that's all existing, not to change.
Okay.
So you can see it in the photo above.
And what will we seeing on the face of that?
Oh,
Like,
pardon the interruption. I just want to make sure everybody's microphones are on. Is
Mine
everybody's
is
microphone?
on.
It
The
is
green
on.
light
Mine
on?
was not on, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right, thank you.
Sorry.
So what we will see on the exterior of that thickness of the deck? What will be
You
the
can see it
exterior
up
wall?
above in the rounding. You can zoom in. So right now it's. I'm so bad at navigating in this thing. So you can see the jacuzzi here. The
Yeah.
stair is just like kind of like a composite material. You could probably see it better in the.
So that will remain?
That's all going to
Okay.
remain. Yeah.
Okay. I thought that it's a proposed new, that face of the thickness. Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move to comments. I'll start. I think it looks great. I think we really appreciate the study and incorporating the feedback. I think the loophole is fantastic with the siding, and I think it works. You know, there's space through it, and for your storage component. And I think it's ready for project design approval. I think that the adjustment to the windows and stepping back help a lot, and it looks very cohesive, like it belongs there in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great project, and I appreciate all the changes you made. You had some really creative solutions with the storage area and everything else, and I think it's going to be a beautiful project and, like I said, an improvement. So I think it's ready for PDA too.
Great.
Yeah, I think I agree with all the comments, and I think the rhythm of the windows helps a lot, and the juxtaposition of the siding with the plaster, and also whatever, if the code you need a railing for the north outdoor
Yeah,
area, even with the railing, I think it's now because it's embedded into the roof. It's not something that will be the previous time everybody had comment. It's sword to the eye. It's not like that. So if it landed to be with railing as well, I think I'm okay with that. And I don't know about other board members. If the railing is match the style of the architecture, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. It's minimal, and what's
Yes.
proposed is the where did it go here? The steel cable rail. So it'll kind of help incorporate in with the siding as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually just going to add one last comment. I don't know if we need to include this in our motion, but I think just because it comes up a lot with the decks that are less than 15 feet from the lot line, since it's a general guideline, I think in this case, I think it was 10 feet and change, but I know you improved it a lot, pulled it back a lot from the setback or the property line. Just given the size of it, it's very modest in size, and I know privacy, and then just in relation to where the other residence is in their yard, I don't have any concerns with that, so I just want to provide that justification.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, is the board good? I would like to propose that it goes to the consent calendar for final. Okay, great. So I move to approve this project for project design approval. And recommend continuing to the full board for to the consent calendar for final approval with the following findings. The proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The project development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and neighborhood, especially with the second-story setback in the footprint of the first floor, and the cohesive exterior siding and plaster throughout. The proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside. There are no trees proposed to be removed. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The project generally complies with good neighbor guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. The proposed balconies are of a modest size, and the board feels they do not pose a privacy concern. The development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside. That's it.
Great. I will second that motion.
Wait, let me add a comment that the board is in support of the railing as shown and or removed at the front balcony per any code changes. Adjustments per code. How about that?
Okay, I will accept that.
Okay, thanks.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslehi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this is just to the applicants that does start the 10-day appeal process. So if we don't hear anything at all, you guys can move on for final approval. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. And then as a reminder, our third item was postponed to October 21st due to quorum issues. And with that, we will end our October 7th Single Family Design Board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.